folks, people would say this is a very confusing language, and they could make it a little bit clearer.
Good morning, this is Tom, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show. And what you're looking at is my old Hallicrafter model SX-110. I've had this 40 years maybe. Gosh, I've had it a long time. And it's just been sitting on the shelf. I've been cleaning my garage. Finally, really made some progress. I can now get to the front of my workshop where I have some bookshelves, metal bookshelves or metal shelves, and I've got some old radios on it, and I was able to get hold of this radio, pull it out. Thing weighs 30 pounds. So consequently my back hurts a little bit this morning because it was kind of in an awkward position to pull out, but I got it anyway. It has not been operated, turned on, plugged in for at least 25 years. And so I carefully plugged it in, turned it on, kind of watched it, see if anything bad would happen. I didn't use a Variac to slowly bring the voltage up because my Variac is lost in my workshop someplace. So I said, what the heck, let's go for it. And don't be surprised if you all of a sudden see smoke coming out of this thing during this video. Like I say, it's quite old. It uses 8 vacuum tubes plus a rectifier. And in its time, it was a pretty darn good radio. Now this thing, you know, it needs alignment. It probably needs some new tubes. So it's not working optimum at all. But surprisingly enough, whoa, it's working. I can't believe it. Now, what I did this morning, I just turned it on. It's 6:52 here on the west coast of Florida in the morning. And so I tried to tune the lower ham band, the 80 meter band. And I was able to, and that's what you were listening to. I don't know if you could hear it because, okay, it's drifted a little bit. This radio's only been on for a short period of time. Okay, I got full volume, so I don't know if you can hear it. When I went to this band, the volume went way down. And like I say, it's not been aligned. It's not had the tubes checked, or it's not. The capacitors haven't been replaced. So it's what it is. But it is working.
Really strong. Yeah, they're actually to the west side of Cancun.
And like most tube radios, it will take a while to stabilize. Like I say, I've only had it on about 10 minutes, so it hasn't completely stabilized. So it's still drifting a little bit. Now let me go over the controls here real quick. This is the main tuning knob, and this is the main tuning dial over here. This is the fine tuning or band spread dial. And this dial is calibrated or marked off for the amateur radio bands, for the 80 through 10 meter bands. So this is the 80 meter band up here. So on this scale, the main band spread, on each of the amateur bands, on the scale there's a little notch, and so you tune the main tuning to that notch, and then this scale over here should be accurate. Should be. Don't know if it is or not. It appears to be close because the signal that I'm listening to normally occurs between 3.8 and 9 megahertz, and the dial is showing right now, it's showing about almost 3.85, which is in the right area. So anyway, so those are the two main knobs here. This knob here is for if you're using this receiver with a transmitter. Before you transmit, you have to put this in standby so it doesn't damage the front end of this radio. So that's what that is. This is an S meter. Over here is an antenna trim. It's basically just a little capacitor that tries to adjust your antenna length, its relative length, so that it receives better. Typically those don't work that great. It's like, okay, you find a spot and you just kind of leave it there. Not a big deal. Down here is a sensitivity control. So it's basically an RF gain control, and it has an AVC on button or position, and I just leave it in that position. Here's the band selector. This has 4 bands. I can tell you I've got the document right here. Not that it's that important, but the 4 bands are 0.538 megahertz to 1.6 megahertz, and then 1.55 megahertz to 4.8, 4.6 megahertz to 13 megahertz, and 12 to 34 megahertz. So this goes from 0.538 to 34 megahertz. Okay, that's what this button is. The next button is selectivity, and let me zoom in here. I forgot I should have done that before. Yeah, it's a little better. The next button is a selectivity button, and you've got normal, and you got crystal, either broad or sharp. The next button is the reception button, AM or CW. So if you put it in CW, which is where it is now, you can tune single sideband with this pitch control over here, and that's what I've done. I'm listening to a single sideband transmission. You got crystal phasing. That's kind of a, maybe you could call it a notch filter. It's used to, if you got an adjacent signal coming in on top of the one you listen to, you can use that to try to tune out that adjacent signal. Maybe it would be considered a band pass control, so that you kind of move the area which you're letting the signal come through, something like that. There's a noise limiter on and off. Typically these don't do much. Volume control, pitch control as I mentioned before, and then this is the on-off and tone control, and a headphones jack here. I've just got it hooked to my little 25-foot long wire antenna that's outside. That's all I'm using. It does not have an internal speaker. That's why I'm using this monster speaker here, monster compared to the radio. It has 2 speaker terminals on the back. One is for a 3.2 ohm speaker, and one is for a 300 ohm speaker. This of which is neither. This is an 8 ohm speaker, so it doesn't really match the radio, and possibly that's why I'm losing some volume here. And so it has I think 2 antenna connections, and they're just screw terminals. So I've got some alligator clips clipped to those and clipped to my outside antenna. They are probably not 50 ohms, which is what my antenna impedance is. Matter of fact, let's see right here on the documentation. It says that antenna input for single wire, 52 to 600 ohms, balanced or unbalanced. So that's probably not that's probably not the antenna I'm using at all. So anyway, so it's doing pretty good. Let me turn the volume back up and see that station is still there. No, they're gone. Let me see if I can find another one just for the heck of it. The band tuning is a little stiff. Again, this radio has been sitting for a long, long time. The other thing is that I've noticed is the contacts on all these switches need to be cleaned. So that could be what happened to the station, is now the contact's not working. So let me turn the volume down because it gets real noisy, and flip this switch. Definitely needs cleaning. See if that made any difference. No, I still don't hear anything. I'm going to delete the volume up a little bit and tweak this band selector. And I think it's still pretty good, just not hearing anything. Okay, let's go to a different, let me see by chance if I can hear WWV. So let's go back to AM mode. And we want to go to the next band. Go all the way down to 5 megahertz. Little noise there. And I think what you do is, if you're tuning anything besides these bands, I think you want to put the band spreader on 0. And then you can read this dial directly. So I'm pretty close to 5 megahertz. And I don't hear anything. Let me turn the tone back to high. And we'll make sure that all these other switches are making contact. I guess they're all good. All pretty noisy. Can kind of hear something there, but it's not really there. Try the antenna trim for the heck. No effect. Let's go. Well, let's just tune up the band here. There's something. Yeah, there is. I'm down just above 5 megahertz. And in this time of the day, I get a lot of Spanish stations. For example, getting a little noisy there. I usually get something right at 6 megahertz. And I don't hear anything there right now. Surprised I haven't run across the preacher man. Oh, there he is. Yeah, one thing I have to say, I read online last night that shortwave band conditions, as far as space weather, that's just another variable, are really poor right now. So that could be why I'm not receiving much. The old preacher man gets through though. Okay, I just wanted to show you this radio. I have several Hallicrafter radios. I've gotten rid of most of them because, as you can see, these things are really bulky. Matter of fact, this is probably one of the smaller ones because a lot of them are even taller. And I have a problem picking up things now that are heavy. And this, like I say, this thing weighs 30 pounds. So I've got a couple of them left. I had an SX-100. I wish I still had that. It belonged to my brother. And I'm always looking to pick one of these up, some of the unusual models, because they're fun to play with. I say they're fun to play with. You got lots of knobs. You have to do a lot of tuning. I consider that fun. These digital radios where you just punch in the frequency and done, not as exciting as these old radios. So anyway, that's the show for today. If you enjoyed this show, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That helps. And it helps YouTube, because YouTube on YouTube, you can set up so that you get an email whenever I post a new video, or any of the other channels you're monitoring, which makes it kind of convenient. So we'll say bye-bye.